Alright, welcome back to another bike review. I have not done one in a long time, but I've been meaning to get this bike off Kevin Lasky for so long to review. It's been like probably top 10 bikes I want to review in like the history of bikes, and he has one and it's not even that far away from me, so let's actually go and do it. I thought the other day I'm going to drive up there, grab the bike, bring it back to the studio and give it a good review. So this is a 2019 Cannondale SystemSix. So I used to have a Super 6 Evo, so this is the aero version of their top model road bike. You don't see this one being ridden a hell of a lot. A lot of the pro teams that ride Cannondale always seem to be using the Super 6 Evo, but the SystemSix is a super fast bike and it looks absolutely amazing. For those of you that know Cannondale well, you'll probably notice that this is not the original paint job that came on this model. It originally looked like this. It was like black with a little bit of pink and green. We always call it the Merida paint job. It's a pretty ugly paint job, to be honest. And so this one, Kevin actually got custom painted by Brendan Sherritt in Wanganui. It is absolutely beautiful. It's a very dark, almost like metallic blue. And then the top tube is like a shiny, almost chromey grey. It is absolutely beautiful. In person, it looks amazing. I've got some very nice bikes in my shed. Every time I've walked in recently, I just look at this thing, I'm like, wow, that really looks really good. Alright, so getting down to specifics, this is a Cannondale SystemSix frame in a 54 centimeter. It is running the new 12-speed Ultegra Di2 group set, the wireless one. He's upgraded the cranks to a Dura-Ace 12-speed power meter. He's got 52-36 rings on here. It's a 172.5 crank. And the wheels he's running are the new Zip 303S's. These are run tubeless with GP 5000s. Continental, which is a really good tyre and wheel choice, I think. And then moving up to the top, he's got a Sella Italia saddle, carbon railed one as well. I think these things are insanely light. And then the biggest thing that you kind of see that he's done is these bikes all come with the full integrated bars. I'm not a massive fan of them. I've seen a few of them. They're really ugly, big, fat stems. So he's changed that to a Pro Vibe stem and a Pro Vibe, I think they're the missile bars as well, like the Aero ones as well, which looks really good. But it does mean that it's not fully integrated and that you can still see a few cables coming out here. So yeah, as you can see, there's still a few cables coming out of the bars. Obviously the cables do run internally through this bar, but they have to pop out here. Unless with some bikes you do a little trick and you can cut a hole, drill a hole in the back of the bars, run it through the stem, but it has to be able to go through here, whereas this one doesn't have that option. So yeah, it looks like he's running a 120mm stem and 42, or maybe even, yeah, probably 42 or 44mm bars. And I know for a fact when I got sent these from Taylor that they flare out a little bit, so the bottoms at the end of the drops are probably around a 44. Also running the K-Edge alloy mount as well for the Wahoo, so that adds a little bit of weight. They're not super light, but I'm kind of interested to see what this thing's going to weigh. So we will zero that. Obviously take into account this is an aero road bike, it's not meant to be super light. Looking like about 8.1, 8.2. So not super light. I think my wind space weighs at about 7.8, so 200 grams or so. But yeah, obviously I'm running full carbon integrated bar and stem and everything, so that kind of would be a little bit of the weight there. But same group set, and pretty much everything else is the same. So in my opinion, there's two little standout features to the design of this frame. And obviously when you look at it, the biggest thing that kind of draws your eye is this super weird and almost kind of like brought back front end. It looks like it's just almost been squished. And obviously they've done this for aerodynamics, but it looks funny because the headset's here and then the forks go backwards and then go down, because obviously there's that gap there, which is super weird. And then it also has an aero flare that goes into the down tube, and there's a really aggressive line here as well. It does look super cool and it's super functional, but the one thing is that these Cannondales in this model, once you get around to there, it has like a stopper on both sides. It kind of just stops there, and if you swing your bars around by accident or they get caught in the wind and that thing whacks around, it is very likely to crack the frame. And then my second thing that I really like about the design of this frame is just the aggressive, almost like time trial nature of this rear seat tube. It is absolutely ginormous, bigger than any other bike, like road bike I've ever ridden. I've ridden two S5s and they've got some pretty big tubes on those new S5s, but nothing compares to this. This is full time trial spec. And the seat post does look absolutely killer. And all the lines on this bike are really cool, like how it comes down here and then just shoots straight down to the rear derailleur. it is a really nice looking frame, and I'm super interested to see how it's going to ride. So yeah, that's kind of the initial walkthrough of the bike and what we've got in front of us to ride today. Such a sick bike, but a little bit of facts on it. It is $13,500 retail in New Zealand for this model and this group set, and I think it's almost $17,000 if you want to bump it up to the Durace model. Because this one has the upgraded thing, I'd say this is about a $14,000 bike, so it's not cheap. From the little bit of investigating and like word on the street, what I have heard about this bike is that it's super fast in a straight line when you're getting aero and on the drops, when you're just kind of riding really hard in a straight line. But out of the saddle and sprinting and some cornering and stuff, it might not be as good as some of the other bikes on the market. So we're going to get kitted up and we're going to test that out and see for ourselves. Alright, we're out on the SystemSix. So basically I'm just going to do an hour, just over an hour loop, just a local one, and it's got some flat roads, it's got a few little punchy climbs, and it's also got some pretty decent corners that I can rail. So really going to put this thing to the test in about an hour. Obviously it already feels super fast, so you jump on these bikes and they're just like, you can tell that this is a super bike, not just a normal bike. So let's get into it and give this thing a proper rail. First ever ride on a Cannondale SystemSix, and that was very enjoyable. It was a pretty windy day, pretty much headwind the whole way out and then a few crosses on the way home. And yeah, my initial thoughts is this is definitely like top tier super bikes in the world. Like the way it handles and the way it rides, it's like one of those, it's like the first time I jumped on an S5, a Cervelo S5, and you just start riding, like holy shit, like this is a different beast than like a normal mid-tier road bike. But yeah, a few little points that I kind of like worked out while I was riding. Definitely there's no problem with the stiffness. I did some seriously good sprints. I think my sprint, I have got no power at the moment because this power meter is not charged, but usually when I do a good sprint I'm either between 1300 and 1450 watts, so a decent amount of power, and I didn't feel any flexiness or anything, which is obviously one of the things people were worried about because it's such a thin bike because of the aerodynamics of it, but really had no problem. One of the things I really liked about it, when you look down at this bit here, it like bows out and the fork and the frame kind of like merge together. It's just like it doesn't actually mean anything, but it just looks really cool when you're riding, and I quite like the look of that. Other than that, I think like it's super fast bike if you're going to be doing flat roads and stuff, but I don't think it's going to hold you back unless you're climbing up some seriously big mountains. I don't think this bike is a problem. I think it's a more of an advantage for the majority of the races people do, like unless you're in the Alps or if you're doing like 4,000 meters of climbing every race, then it's probably isn't the bike for you. But one thing I did feel like when I stopped at a few stop signs and had to get up and going, it feels a little bit sluggish trying to get up and go. I'm not sure if that's the bike or the wheels, but it just feels a little bit sluggish. It was all good around the corners, but I just don't think it handles quite as good as the Super 6. Like if you're going to be doing crit riding, I'd definitely choose a Super 6 over this. But for tour riding, for like what I do, I'd kind of like narrow these bars, get some 36s, and you can get super aero and quite low on this bike. Chuck a set of 60s on it and it would be an absolute weapon. They probably top 3 bikes that I've ever ridden, and I think I've reviewed over 20 bikes on this channel now. It's such a sick bike. It's not quite like my top bike is a Cervelo S5, the new one. It's not quite a S5, but I'd say it's either 2 or 3 underneath that. Super sick. I'll be interested to see what Cannondale do, if they're going to keep this with the Lab 71 coming out, and yeah, see if they actually change any of the design or not, or they're just going to stick with the Super 6, which will be interesting. Kev also has a Super 6 Lab 71 coming, so hopefully I can get my hands on that. We'll do a little bit of a build review, and the first ride on that would be absolutely sick. That looks like a seriously cool bike, but it's very hard to get your hands on one in New Zealand. But I'd love to review that one as well. But if there's another bike that you'd like me to review, please leave it in the comments below. But that is going to be the end of today's video. If you did enjoy it, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new.